Hey everyone, it is time for the backing and the borders. Are you ready? Hi everyone, Cristin here, and if you're following along with the Spring Showers quilt, you have completed your outer borders all the way around. And so do you know what comes next? That means it's time to add our backing. So the next step is our backing. And I'll tell you, this one is going to be easier. I don't know if we just got extra material or maybe because it's smaller than some of the bigger quilts, but this one, it fits. So you want to have about at least 1 inch all the way around extra. More is fine, but at least 1 inch all the way around. Obviously, you're going to put the right side of your fabric behind your quilt so that you can see, here is the right side and here is the wrong side. You can see it up at the top there. So anyway, you're going to have 1 inch at least all the way around. And let me see if I can show you this. There's quite a bit of extra fabric, like quite a bit. So there's the end, and look at all of that. So you're going to have a lot of extra of this pretty green flowery fabric. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, like I was saying, so at least 1 inch extra all the way around. And so here's a thing that I wanted to also make sure and remember to discuss. So some people want to put a full sheet of batting against your backing. You absolutely can do that. That is total personal choice right there. I'm not going to. I find it hard enough to get these stitched in the ditch with the throat of our machine, and adding an extra layer is just not something I want to do. So do whatever works for you. Some say that it hangs a little bit better on the wall if you're doing it for warmth. Like if this isn't a decorative quilt that's going to hang on your wall, if you're doing it for warmth, go for it. If you think it will hang better on your wall, go for it. Whatever works for you. I have several on my walls. I'm looking around my room at them and they hang great. So I am not going to add any extra bulk to this quilt. But again, totally up to you. So like I said, start by getting at least 1 inch all the way around. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pin. So here's what I do. I pin every single block. I put a pin in it. And that helps hold it so that you're not getting bubbles on the back of your fabric. And it will lay straight. But it also, this is why I started doing it. Because it will tell me which block I've completed. So this one will be easier because it's really just row by row. But some of the other ones like Hello Sunshine and Broomhilda and Boardwalk, they're, all different size blocks and they're kind of just all over the place. And so it makes it really easy, in my opinion, if you have a pin in every block so that you know which ones are not done. And then as you finish that block, after you've stitched all the way around the entire block, then you take out that pin. So then you know which ones are already done. So to me, that was a really easy way to know how to make sure that they're done. I also do it on the borders, the sashings, the inner border, outer border. I do the whole thing. So one other thing on that about the pins, I have to remember. So I will put a link under the video of the pins that I use. When I first started this, my first one was, Hello Sunshine, but that one I took to a long arm quilter. So after that, it was Make Yourself at Home. And I bought these cool pins that I thought were so cool. They were pink and blue and green and all different colors. Well, good luck getting them through your quilt. They were junk. They were not sharp at all. So now I have invested, here I'll show you my little container here. I've invested in a set. This is, I don't think that this container was from something else, I think. But anyway, I think they're Dritz pins. I'll have to look them up, but I have a bunch of them. I bought a bunch and I invested basically in pins. So they have this little curve on them and they're very sharp. They work great. I highly recommend these. I have a few different sizes because you want smaller ones for the inner borders, but I have and some quilts, like these are all pretty big blocks, but some of them have pretty small blocks, so like 2x2 blocks. So I have different sizes. I have these, which I didn't look up before I started this video to tell you which ones is which, but I will add links under the video. But you can see there's also little ones. So now watch, I'll spill all of them all over the floor. You just know I will. But anyway, so here's a good comparison. So the bigger ones and the smaller ones, and I just think that they're great. So I really highly recommend these. As soon as I found them and started using them, I bought more because I decided that those were the way to go. I have some other smaller ones, but they're not good. I don't like them. I really like I think they're Dritz, but I will add a link under this video, and then just keep a little container. Look, I didn't spill them all over. Aren't you so proud? So anyway, 1 pin in every block. As soon as you have all 4 sides of that block, take the pin out, and then you know that that one's not done, because otherwise you're kind of lifting up your quilt over and over to see which blocks are done and which ones still need doing. So that's my little tip. There was something else I wanted to tell you. I remembered. So you want to start from the middle. So you always want to start from the middle of your quilt when you are stitching in the ditch. So like pick a block that's in the middle, maybe even that toadstool block that I personally found very difficult. Only because I had to do it in so many different ways. But anyway, so just pick a block that's in the middle. You could even do this cute little log cabin and start from the middle and work your way out. So you always want to start from the middle. So if you have a brother or baby lock machine, it may be in all the machines, I don't know, but they have this move it foot. And you want to use your move it foot if you have one. So this is the one for my dream machine, and it's very easy to do, and it just glides through. It has extra feed dogs or something, I don't know, but it works. That's all I care about. It works. So there is also a stitch in the ditch foot. I think this one must have come with my new machine, because the other one I had was all silver and this one has some black on it. But if you can see this, there is this thing here, and that goes right in the seam and kind of helps create a little valley for you to be able to do your stitching. So if you have a stitch in the ditch foot, if you have a move it foot, whatever works for you, use it. All right. This was the one that came with my new machine. I have a Luminaire now. I haven't used it before, as you can see. Looks pretty involved, a little scary. But anyway, I will check on how to use this, and I'm sure it will be great. So anyway, move it foot, good pins, stitch in the ditch foot is helpful. Thread, let's talk about thread. All right, so let's talk thread. You want invisible thread. It's called mono something or other, I don't remember, but you could type invisible thread into the search bar at Amazon, or I do have links underneath this video, of course, of what I like. Your local quilt shop probably has some invisible thread as well. So there are a lot of them on the market. I've tried several of them. My personal favorite is probably Gutermann. I like the Gutermann one. I will add a link underneath the video. There's also Sulky that works really well. And then I bought this huge one. I didn't know it was that huge when I bought it. But I think I tried it and it was too like fishing wire line is what it felt like to me. I don't remember, but anyway, it's even got like gunk in it. Anyway, so my personal preference is Gutermann or Sulky. These both have worked really well for me. I think I like Gutermann even the best. But any invisible thread. And remember, when you're using specialty thread, you don't want to use your threader, your automatic threader. You want to use your reading glasses and your little tweezers. Whatever works for you, but it's not recommended to use your auto threader when you use specialty thread like invisible thread or metallic thread. So anyway, those are all the tips for now. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think it will be a pretty easy process, and we will talk about the binding after we finish all of the stitch in the ditch. tip is that you want your pin to be as close to the center of the block as possible, away from the seams, because we're going to be stitching all the way around these seams, so you don't want your pin in the way. Okay, so I just want to show you how easy this Move It foot is. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So it's got this roller on it, and it just pulls right through super easily. And let me just show you. So I'm just using my arms to help keep the seams open. My little pin is in the way a little bit, but so then when you get to the end, just pivot. So I've already done this one, and this one, so I have this last one to do. I'm going to go ahead and just take this pin out, but it's so easy. I can't believe it. This Move It fit is pretty awesome. So since I've already done this one, and this one, as soon as I complete this one, that means I take this pin out, because then I know that that whole block is done. So easy peasy. And I'm using clear thread, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. If you have a stitch in the ditch foot, it helps to keep your fabrics separated. I don't actually have one for this foot. I thought I would, and I don't. So that's fine. Anyway, so that one is done, that block. So before, I would have to sit there and look underneath and check, and oh, did I get all 4 bits? And I did. So now it's just so easy. If I just take that pin out, then I know which ones I have already completed, and I can keep moving on. So easy peasy. Are you having fun yet? On a side note, I realized I put pins throughout my, well, a couple spots in my inner borders, but you actually don't need them, because when you go all the way around, you're going to have it, you don't have to go the length of the inner borders, or the sashings, I should say, the sashings. So you can take those pins out if you want, because you're going to get the pins that are from the squares, the blocks. And so this one, the center is not going to matter, because they will already be tacked down. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so once you have the backing on and all stitched in the ditch, look at it. This was so easy, and it came out so great. I'm very happy with it. That Move It foot made a huge difference. I'm curious if you have a machine that's not a brother or baby lock. Do you have something that's like a Move It foot, that big foot that has the like moving conveyor belt on it, is what it looks like. Anyway, I'm curious. I want to know if other machines have that also. So that just made it super simple. I actually didn't have the stitch in the ditch foot that fits that Move It foot, and I really didn't even need it. So anyway, it came out great. I'm very, very, very happy with it. It was super easy, much easier than I expected. So I'm curious to see how yours is coming along. So after we finish the backing, adding the backing and doing the stitch in the ditch, then it's time for the binding. So I will say I like 2.5-inch binding. That's my personal preference. I think it's easier when you're doing the machine embroidery and you're pulling it over on the other side and doing a little decorative stitch. I like 2.5, and there was not enough fabric on mine for 2.5 inches. So it does say in the directions to do 5 strips of 2.25 inches, 5 strips for your binding fabric. And it is this really pretty red flowery fabric. So what I did is I cut it into, mine was 12 inches wide times width of fabric. So I divided that by 5, and I was able to get 2.4. So a little bit bigger than 2.25 and a little bit shorter than what or slimmer than what I prefer. So you need 2.25 inches minimum. You can get as much as 2.4 inches. So measure however it works for you, but make sure and do the entire width of fabric and 5 strips. And then we are going to go ahead and start the binding. Okay, so once you have your 5 strips all sewn together, then you're gonna fold it in half and iron it. And then I put mine in a ball. I'm not sure what everyone else does. I am going to do machine embroidery binding. Some people like to bind it by hand. More power to you. I definitely use the machine. So we are going to start from the back and stitch that down and then fold it over and do the top. And I'll go over it step by step how to get those mitered corners. Some people have, I don't remember what it's called, there's some little thing that you can use to hold your binding. I actually just use I think it's a bobbin thing. I don't know, but I'll share a picture of it. That works for me. That's what I've always done. So anyway, it is time to sew our binding onto our quilt. Alright, so I am starting on the back of the quilt like I mentioned, and I like to make this little pocket, and that is just so that once I finish all the way around, I can put the top into this little pocket and sew it closed. And that just makes it easier for me. I'm sure that you know other ways. Do whatever works for you. Sewing is not my strong suit, and this way has always worked well for me. So you saw I just folded down and I created a little pocket. I will put the excess fabric in there and close it off. So it closed. So it all just looks pretty seamless. That works for me. Do whatever works for you, and let's go ahead and get sewing our binding on, and I will show you how to do the mitered corners when I get there as well. And I am using my Move It foot again. It's got that little conveyor belt thing. I don't know what it's called, but it just rolls along so easily, even with lots of bulk. So this works great. When you get about a 1/2 inch from the end of one of the sides. Then what I do is I lock it off and then I pull it out where I can see it. And then what I'm going to do is just make my mitered corner here, and all you do is fold it up over itself right from the end there. So you would hold this until it looks exactly even with this side here, the end here I should say, the corner, and then up. So hopefully you can see this. Let me see if I can zoom in. Okay, that might be better. So 1/2 inch from the end. Some people do a 1/4 inch. I like a 1/2 inch. It gives me a little bit more room. And then you're just folding it over itself. So from here, lining it up on the edge and lining it up this way. Not sure how to describe it, but from the corner end here and straight up. And then once you have that, then you're just bringing it down over itself, holding that there so that it stays in place. So just like that. And then you would start stitching from the end there, right from your 1/4 inch right down the side there. All right. Okay, we're at another corner, so let's show you how to do a miter corner again. So I marked my fabric with a pencil about a 1/2 inch above the end or before the end. So then you would just, excuse my dogs, you would just fold it from here over itself and line it up so that it is right at the corner, and this is as straight as you can get it. So you can just move it around until it's just right, and then you just bring the top back over itself. And we're going to stitch this down. The raw edge will be sewn down. And that is how we make a miter. You'll see on the other side when we actually turn it into a miter, but this is how we get it to that point. And here we are at another corner. So here's the mark that I made with my pencil. You can definitely just eyeball it, whatever works for you. So we're just going to stitch close to that mark. And then I just back it up and lock down that stitch. And then I cut. And I bring it out so that I can get it the way that I want it. So let me make sure you can see. All right. So from here, here is our binding fabric. So we are just going to once again get it in that corner. So right at this corner here, and then I like to have this part as straight as possible. I am not an expert at mitered corners or sewing anything, but this is how I do it, and this is what works for me. So once you get it where it is at a nice 45-degree angle from that corner, then you fold back that top fabric lined up with your quilt top, the back of your quilt top, and then you get ready to stitch it from the top. All right, and once you get your quilt all straight, then right to the top part. Oops, sorry, kicking the tripod. And isn't that Move It Fit amazing? Oh my gosh, I'm kind of in love with it. I need to get the attachment for the stitch in the ditch and for the 1/4 inch foot for sure. I'm using the little guide on here instead, but that's not as easy to me as the 1/4 inch would be. So as I get close to this corner, I'm just going to use my little 1/2 inch marker. Doesn't have to be exact. You could definitely eyeball it and just mark. You could also put a pin in it, by the way. That's very easy. That's what I usually do. And then I am going to make a perfect 45-degree from that corner. I think it's 45. Can you hear my dog in the background eating a bone? Sorry about that. Oh, and we're almost done. We're on the last corner. That's nice. All right. All right, as we get near the end where we made that little pocket, so one thing is if you did it too close, you can take out some of those stitches, a few of those stitches. You just want enough room for this to lay in here nicely without it poofing up at all. It's very easy to do. All it has to make it past is the beginning of this little pocket. So then I just trim my binding fabric. And I fold it into that little pocket just like that. And it just makes sure it's laying flat. It makes it, to me, this is like the easiest thing in the world, but I'm sure that you probably know other techniques that have worked for you, so do that. Whatever works, but this works really well for me. And then you just continue all along so that it's closed off. Back to where you started, and the back side is now done, and we will flip it over and turn the fabric over to do the front. All right, now that the backing is done, or the back of the binding is done, we're going to bring it over to the front. And this is when you can look through your pretty decorative stitches and decide something fancy if you want. It's totally up to you. I'll be honest, I almost always choose this little wavy line one just because it's simple. It doesn't have a lot of back and forth, and with the drag on the quilt, I find that one to be the simplest. But if you've got a move it foot, I mean, it just moves along so easily that you really could do any of your pretty decorative ones and do just fine. Totally up to you. Okay, so now we're on the last step of the binding. So we are just going to take it from the back, here's the back, and bring it and fold it over the front. Easy peasy, right? And then while you're holding it down, you're going to stitch this with a decorative stitch or a plain stitch. It doesn't matter at all, totally up to you, but just continue folding it over until you get to the corner, and then we'll go over what we do with the corner. So just like this at this point, and just stitch this down from the front. All right, keep stitching all the way down, and when you get to the corner, just get it as opened up as you can, and then fold that edge over with it. You just got to finagle it a little bit to get it to that mitered corner. It's hard to do on camera, but basically folding it over and keeping this, I push it in enough that it just has the corner piece. Hopefully you can see that. Let me see if I can. All right, so now that I have it zoomed in, so all the way over, I'm doing this looking through a lens, so you're just going to fold it over and have it pushed in enough that you have just a nice little corner edge, and it makes it into a nice little mitered corner. And again, it'll be easier off camera, but you see basically how it makes it into a nice little corner edge there. Also, so you can see I stitched all the way down to basically where the quilt ends, and then I'm going to turn it to stitch the rest. And I'm going to start up after I get my miter corner just right, then I will tack it down and keep stitching all the way down.